And so I wanted to speak to you about the new Wikileaks sessions or series that are coming out called Vault 7. And so with my talk called Opening the Vault, it's going to be a discussion on IT security and the policies that are around it. So also, I'm Amber Grimaldi. I work for VMware as an escalation engineer. I'm not in security, it's just something that's interesting to me. So I thought we would discuss more. So for those who are not aware, Wikileaks earlier this week came out with a new series called Vault 7 that's specifically focusing on the CIA and their security practices. Sorry about that. For those of you who aren't familiar with Wikileaks also, they've been around since 2006 and describe themselves as a multinational media organization and library devoted to analysis and publication of censored and restricted materials involving war, spying, and corruption. The first release of this series is called Year Zero, which is now publicly available and which was released on Tuesday. So in recent years, there have been a lot of focus also on the government's practices around security and IT specifically, and basically withholding information from the public. So because we are part of the technology community, I feel that it's really important to bring this up and make sure that it's at the forefront for those who might not have seen this come forward. Specifically, so the source of Vault 7, which is currently unnamed, has called out to the public to take this information and start a discussion regarding these practices, how they're used, managed, and what oversight is available. So let's discuss. One thing to note is Wikileaks, if you're actually going forward after this and taking a look at this, has chosen to redact and anonymize Vault 7 so that they can be able to protect some identities and information until it's been validated fully. So, first, some background. There's a lot of history of this and the government's practices with all of it. So these are just kind of the top things that we want to focus on, at least in this talk, and what's relevant and most current. So in between 2008 and 2010, then the US developed the Vulnerability Equities process. Specifically, this was so that all of the departments within departments like Homeland Security and Defense and the Attorney General's office and others in the government came together to develop this process, and this is what's used for the government to validate whether or not a security concern or a vulnerability should be made public. And then in April 2014, President Obama issued a statement that any vulnerability discovered can only be withheld after approval of VEP and implemented with a White House review of this process, whereas previously it was pretty much insular to the NSA, which makes it kind of doesn't really do much to it, right? Because if the NSA is the only one who has any say in it. And so with 2014, we were led to believe that there should be more oversight, be a better process, and it was generally an overhaul. In 2015, the CIA launched a new Directorate for digital innovation. So there were 4 other directorates that have pretty much been there since the inception, and so this one is focusing on IT concerns specifically. It had 3 different organizations within it: Information Technology Enterprise, which is like the internal IT; Open Source Enterprise, which is development for tools to be used of open source, as well as the Center for Cyber Intelligence, which is what we're focusing on and what is focused on with Vault 7. And then, so for the last thing, then it was with the change of the administration, then it was unknown whether or not what Trump would do with it, or if he would keep supporting this directorate. And so recently he actually said that he would keep supporting it, and he put in a new advisor for it as well. Okay. And so, Wikileaks actually, through Vault 7 and Year Zero, has kind of developed an organization chart for us to kind of see, or at least better, visualize where all of this is happening. And so parts of Year Zero are pretty much focusing on those highlighted in yellow here. and those specific groups and the things that they've done and developed. And so I'm not really going into a lot of the specifics because this is actually one of the largest releases from Wikileaks. Like there's over almost 8,000 different documents just within the first section of the series. But to give kind of an overview of the different targets and ideas that are coming out of it, then this is the first one in focusing on, mobile devices and smart TVs. So primarily with those, then we're looking at the groups for mobile devices branch and the embedded devices branch. There have been various exploits on there. There was over 24 for malware practices to retrieve data, take over the device, implant information for mobile devices. Specifically, what I thought was interesting with smart TVs, and I had never heard before, like even in some paranoid conjecture, was that smart TVs, they had developed ways for smart TVs to be taken over and turned into listening devices. Specifically, the project itself is called Be the Angel for that. And there are also discussions within these groups that of being able to develop programs to infect vehicle control systems, which, as you can imagine, it will be pretty terrifying as a passenger there, because you would basically be helpless to be able to do anything from whatever, if anyone tried to inject anything or take over the control of the vehicle. I don't think that there was actually any plans, at least in year 0, for that, but even thinking about it for me is terrifying. And so then also for malware targets, Windows, Linux, OS X routers, along with many other various operating systems within there. They have were developed by the Automated Implant branch and the Network Devices branch. Specifically, I think the most important part of noting with this is that there's evidence that they had created basically a customizable multi-platform malware attack service, so that basically they have one program that they were able to kind of like ordering in a menu, figure out like how you can be able to implant it, what you would want to do, and be able to not only just retrieve data, but also implant any information, as well as like implant commands and everything to take over the system itself. So specifically, the one for that is Hive Suite is what kind of the main control system is for that. And so how it works is that Hive allows the implant to communicate over HTTPS to a cover domain. And then it would switch domains for each operation, so it would be really hard to track. And then if the domain receives an authorized SSL client authentication, it will allow forwarding to the Honeycomb tool server, which is basically acts as the menu, so that any operator can go into the tool server then with the rent access and be able to select what they want to do, whether it's retrieving data or implanting, etc. And then any incoming connections without the authentication would basically forward their traffic over to a cover server with a dummy site, and so none's the wiser if they come across it accidentally. So, with information like this, a lot of different things are brought up in terms of security and our political rights and civil rights that go along with this. We've kind of always known, or at least thought, that the government has like this capability to watch us whenever we want to, if they really wanted to. But some of this is definitely new, and the amount of detail that is available now is definitely concerning for, I think, people in the IT community. Additionally, with all of this that came out, is that along with 2014, when the Obama administration came forward and said that the default would be to give out vulnerabilities to the vendors and the community, and to make sure that they're public so that they can be able to cover it over. They had also come out with that we, for the most part, don't really have that many zero-day vulnerabilities, and so that pretty much quelled a lot of the uproar that was coming around for things like Stuxnet, which still not confirmed was the U.S. government, but pretty much most people believe so, as well as shadow brokers and other types of vulnerabilities that came out. But with the release of Year Zero, or Vault 7, then it has confirmed that there are many, many more zero-day vulnerabilities that are within the government's control and have not been made public. So it is concerning in terms of BEP and the process and what oversight actually comes across them. So my main questions coming from this is who should be involved in BEP? In 2014, then the White House is supposed to have overseeing now, but considering that there's also a change in presidency, like how does that affect what security concerns are along there, as well as what should the U.S. be responsible for to report to the public? From what they say, then it sounds like it's good, but if it means that we already have, I wouldn't call it necessarily an arsenal, but a stash of vulnerabilities that are not being put forward to the public as they should be, then it's something of concern. Okay, and so I'm just mostly posing these questions. There's a lot more and a lot of information out there. By all means, you should go out and read them for yourselves, make your own informed decisions, and then also make sure to write your whoever you elected. Tell them that this is concerning. And so here are some of the resources. I read a whole bunch more, but these are pretty much just the ones that were used.